on with Chris Gergen. Listen, the reason that I wanted to go live tonight, which is not something that I typically do, but the reason that I wanted to go live tonight is to discuss the op-ed that I wrote that got published in the Linwood Times. And first, I'd like to thank the Linwood Times for publishing the piece. I felt like I needed to have a voice in this conversation, and I felt that this was the way to do it. And I wanted to do it in such a way that was, I didn't want to put my thumb on the scale, but I wanted to give everyone a very clear view into what's going on and where this race really is, and the dangers that the party, the Washington State Republican Party, is facing, and Republicans in general in Washington, the danger that they are facing this election cycle. There has never been, I know we say this every single cycle, that this is the most important cycle, that you hear that a lot, and maybe you're numb to it. But I want to be really, really clear here. This really is the most important election cycle, possibly in the history of the state. Because if Bob Ferguson becomes governor, it's lights out. The issues that you have with Inslee are going to be magnified, because Inslee is more of a tool. He does what he's told. There's an agenda. He follows it. He signs the bills, blah, blah, blah. He's not masterminding anything. Bob Ferguson, however, is Machiavellian at heart. He is someone that actively goes after and actively chases down people who oppose him, whether in his own party or people who oppose him, who are conservatives. You look at even somebody like Tim Eyman and the fight that Tim has had with Bob Ferguson for years now. But Tim is extremely persistent. And to be fair, he doesn't really have a choice. He has to be persistent if he's going to survive, because if he stops, then, it's like the lion chasing the gazelle. If the gazelle stops at any point, it's going to be problems. And so Tim has continued to run and continue to push back and continue to fight and continue to struggle, not only for himself, but also for the rest of the voters in Washington. We're in a situation here in the governor's race where you have two really very, very different Republicans who are running. And I want to be clear here. They are Republicans, both of them. One is an establishment Republican, Dave Reichert, I think 6 or 7 term congressman. He's been around. He's run some races. He's fought the fights. He sat in the meetings in D.C. He's been around. He understands this business very, very well. He understands Washington coming out of King County. He is a moderate Republican by his own mouth. I believe that he's probably would tell you that. And though I've never had a conversation with him, he's never told that to me, but I don't think that that would be a stretch to label him in that way, as a moderate. To the conservatives in Washington State, those that supported Mr. Culp and other conservatives like Mr. Culp in Washington State, the thought of Dave Reichert is just not something that they want to think about, not something that they want to rally behind, and they would rather a more conservative candidate. So you've got Semi Bird. Semi Bird is the conservative choice, and he declared, I believe, in November of 22. So he's been at this now. I think this is the 18th month that he's at this. And where he is in the race it's up for discussion. It really is. And where Dave Reichert is in the race is up for discussion. And this whole thing about endorsement and leveraging the party to get the endorsement, like that's a magic bullet. It's something that I want to discuss. It's something that I discussed not really real deeply in my article. If you haven't read the article, I'll link to it below so you can go and read it. And then in any links that I talk about in this podcast today, I will link below. But the Washington State Republican Party is in real danger here. Real danger. The rule changes and the endorsements and the fact that the party is even making an endorsement in a contested primary, I think is just nuts, to be honest with you. I think it's bad for the party. There's no win there. for the party, because if they endorse somebody, then it's going to leave a whole group of people upset that you need to bring aboard in the general. I just don't see any win there for the party, but they decided that they were going to do it that way, and that's on them, right? But before I get into all that, I would like to talk about the article, which I have right here. The title of the article is Semi-Serious: Will Byrd's Candidacy Clip Reichard's Wings? And I laid out in the article specifically where all of the candidates are. So I'd like to begin with just financially. Financially, the health of a campaign is judged by its how much money it can raise. That is just true. You can't deny that. You can't say it doesn't matter. You can't say that money doesn't matter in politics. That's like saying money doesn't matter in business, right? That's just dumb on its face, right? You have to have money to pay staff. You have to have money to run ads. You have to have money to send mail. You have to have money to send text messages. You have to have money to feed people. You have to have money to travel around the state. You have to have money to put gas in the cars. You have to have money to rent things. You have to have money to rent venues. You have to have money to buy all the collateral, like step and repeats and pop-ups and handouts. You have to have money to do all of these different things. If you're going to go knock on doors, great. You need lit cards. You have to have money to print those. If you're going to knock on 100,000 doors or 150,000 doors or 200,000 doors, great. You have to have money to do all of those different things. And if you don't have the money to do it, then you can't reach the people. That's the bottom line. So the very first thing I'm going to do is go over where everybody is right now, just to set the baseline, where everybody in the race is. Okay, the top 6 people in this race, because there's really nobody behind Semi Byrd, who is 6th, by the way. There's nobody behind him that is raised any money. I think 47,000 is the next highest behind him. I could be wrong on that, but if memory serves, that's what it is. So let's start. Number 1, the front runner, Bob Ferguson. Bob Ferguson has $6,417,463. He's the front runner. Then you've got Dave Reichert, who was raised in about 10 months, just over 10 months. He's raised $2,569,292. And they've done that in just about 10 months, which averages, if you average that out, just divide it by 10, he's raised about 250 grand a month. Okay, which is pretty strong. Then in third place is Mark Mullet. And Mark has raised $1,145,349, which is actually a pretty good haul. He's way behind Ferguson for the Dems, but 1.1 million at this point in the race is pretty solid, pretty good. And then in fourth place, you've got Governor Inslee, who decided to bow out of this race, I believe last May. I want to say it was last May. So about a year ago. He's got he raised $1,030,142. Behind Governor Inslee is Hillary Franz. Hillary Franz actually dropped out of this race and pivoted into a congressional race, but she was in the race for about 6 months. And in that 6 months, she raised $743,396. She raised that in about 6 months, and she has not been in this race for 5 months. So she has basically been gone as long as she was in the race. She's got $743,396 is what she raised. Then there's Semi Byrd, ranking in 6th place. He's got $428,608. And he's done that in 18 months. That is a year and a half. So he has got less than 10% of what Bob Ferguson has, who you will see in the general election. Republicans will see Bob Ferguson in the general. So right now, if Bob stopped raising money today, threw it neutral, didn't take another dollar, Semi is sitting, after 18 months of campaigning, he's sitting at less than 10% of what Ferguson raised. He's only raised 20%, actually not even 20%. I think about 18%, 16, 18% of what Dave Reichert has raised. And Dave's only been in the race for 10 months. Semi's been at this for 18 months. 18, 1-8. That's a year and a half he has been in this race. Barnstorming the state, talking to everybody. And then when you look at Lauren Culp's campaign, when I took charge of Lauren's campaign in December, we made a change in leadership the very beginning of November, and then I took complete control of the organization in December. I believe it was December 1st. I flew in, or right around the first week of December, I flew in to Washington State for the first time on behalf of Lauren Culp, and we started the campaign, and we organized everything from December through November. We raised more money than the previous month before it. And it took us about 3 months to get ourselves organized and reoriented. Then in March, it was still looking kind of tough, but we really gained traction. We did a big event that gained some traction, got some notoriety, got a little bit of media, got people talking, and then COVID happened. And so then that changed everything. And so then we had to pivot. But then in April, we gained a little bit more, and we were doing more things. Then in May, we did a little bit more. And then in June, it was a little bit more. And then, you know, by the time we hit June, we were the clear front runner, full stop. And Lauren was everywhere. Not only was he working 30 to 40 hours a week as the chief of police up in Republic, he was also campaigning 20 to 30 hours a week on the road, driving, appearing at things, going to meet and greets. Didn't make a difference where it was. There were 39 counties, and we were committed to campaign in all 39 of them. Because remember, we had 34 opponents, one of which was pretty well funded and was the establishment pick. Now, it was interesting, you know, our strategy there, we decided to forego the party because the other candidate, our opponent, had already wrapped up the party. He'd already got all the endorsements that he needed to get, and he had a lot of party support. And so what we decided to do is we just decided to go to the people. And it was from the people, we the people, that we really built a movement over the balance of the time that we had for the election. Now, 18 months in, you've got a guy that he's not making any sort of progress. His campaign has been like an octopus on roller skates, right? You've got a whole lot of motion, but no progress, right? We're doing a lot of things, but nothing is working together. There's been staffing problems. They've had trouble keeping staff. There's been a high burn rate to where they're spending a lot of money that they don't really have to spend. There's just a lot of problems. And listen, I'm not here to attack Semi personally. I personally like him. I had conversations with him a couple months ago. I've talked to him on the phone. I've talked to him direct via video call, texted. I like him very much. I think that he is a good husband, good father. I don't have anything bad to say about him personally. And this is nothing that I did not tell him directly when we had kind of a come to Jesus talk back in February. I did. And I don't know if he would confirm this or not, but I told him directly in front of a witness on this call that really March was the make or break. If he didn't have a just crushing March to where they made significant progress forward, it was going to be all over, because there would be no way for him to catch up. And I stand by that. I do. I stand by that. And so in this article, I would encourage you to go read it. I make the case not necessarily against Semi. If you want to support Semi, then I encourage you to support him. Support him. If he's your guy, support him. But you have to realize that if the delegates go to the WSRP convention and they nominate him and they give the endorsement of the party to someone that has no chance of winning, this is over. he has no financial pathway to win. Because if he did have a financial pathway, he would have already found it after 18 months. If you give the endorsement, the WSRP endorsement, the official Republican Party endorsement, to a candidate who clearly can't win, who everyone sees clearly cannot win, it isn't going to make a difference to Reichert, because he's not looking for the party endorsement anyway. He's not looking for the party support anyway. If the party supports him, I'm sure he'll think that's fantastic, and he'll go about his day doing what he does, and that's reaching the people, the voters that he needs to win the race. He's not worried about the WSRP. He's not chasing it down. The one who will get damaged in all of this is the WSRP itself, because the large dollar donors and all the people, well, maybe not all, but a large majority of the people who have traditionally given and funded the WSRP, all of that money, those checkbooks will close. I can guarantee it. I've already had conversations with many of the stakeholders across the state, and they have all said the same thing. The money will dry up. It will become a financial desert, and there will be no oasis, and it will not be good for the party. Now, you might say, well, Chris, screw the party. We don't need the party. Well, you're right. Maybe you don't. But you know who does need the party? All of my clients, all the down ballot candidates, all of the other consultants in the state, whom some of them I like, some of them I don't like. It doesn't make a difference. We're all in the same boat. If the WSRP gets hammered because of this financially, it's going to affect every down ballot race. It's going to affect every single candidate in every single race down the ballot. And it isn't going to make a difference in the governor's race. Not one bit. It won't. There is nothing good here for anyone. If the party itself chooses to endorse either candidate, it isn't going to make a difference. If the party turns around and just magically endorses Reichert, it isn't going to give Reichert a boost. He doesn't care. What it's going to do is alienate the semi-bird voters, and they're going to get mad, and they're going to take their football and go home, and that could hurt Reichert in the general election. There's nothing good here. The WSRP should not, I cannot state this more strongly, the WSRP should not in any way involve itself in any sort of endorsement situation. I'm not in favor of any party at any level making endorsements in contested primaries. I'm just not. I think the farthest they should go is maybe recommendations. Maybe they rank they interview them all and maybe rank them and then make recommendations based on, flat criteria that is the same for everyone, and then leave it up to publish it and then leave it up to the voters to decide. But at the end of the day, I am a we the people person, and I want to empower the people. And when the party's picking winners and losers, it's not good for anybody. And those of you who are cult people, who are now bird people, I distinctly remember a lot of you being angry that the WSRP had chosen Freed and didn't give Lauren a chance. And now that the conservatives have a position, have a little bit of power, you're trying to run the same play against Reichert the WSRP ran against Lauren 4 years ago. So you got to make a choice. Are you going to be principled or not? The WSRP cannot be involved in this at all. Now, let me tell you what else is going to happen. If all the money dries up, there's going to be a concerted effort to come after Jim Walsh's head. I know this because they're going to want somebody to blame, right? And I like Jim. Jim is a very smart man. Jim is many things, and dumb is not one of them. Jim is a very, very smart guy. And I know that Jim sees, and I've not talked to Jim, so don't conjecture that he and I have had conversations. We have not. But I just know where this goes. He's going to get blamed, and there will be a concerted effort to get rid of him. Then what's going to happen is, if Semi gets the endorsement, there's going to be a concerted effort amongst the establishment-minded voters to rally together and to challenge every PCO and to retake the party. And then there's going to be a fight. And then they're going to try to take over the WSRP again. And then there's going to be a fight. And then the cycle will repeat. And it's not good for anyone. You know, I came to Washington State in March and I had to sit down. I made some phone calls with some of the stakeholders, people that you wouldn't necessarily think that I would sit down and have conversations with. And I'm not going to name names. It was a private meeting. And some of these people were actually surprised that I would reach out to them, because traditionally we're not necessarily people that would hold hands and run through the daisies together. But it was a good faith meeting. And those that came, that were able to come, we had a productive conversation. The one thing that we all agreed on was that we need to get Republicans elected, period. We need to get Republicans elected. We need to get conservatives elected. We need to get establishment-minded Republicans elected. We need to get Republicans elected, period. Because if you don't win public office, there's no way you can make any of the changes that any of you want to happen in the legislature. It doesn't matter if you don't hold office. All you're relegated to is sitting behind Facebook, bitching all day and typing nasty messages. We have to win races. We have to start working together. There has to be peace. There just does. You know, which is why I've not been an advocate for personal attacks from either side. I don't think that there is a place for it. Personal attacks, you know, going after people's families, going after people, you know, digging into people's stuff. Like I don't do that. I didn't do it against Freed. I didn't do it against Fortunato. I didn't do it against Tim Eyman. I didn't do it against any of our opponents because I didn't need to. Your candidate, if they're not strong enough to make the case for themselves, then jumping in the mud and throwing it at somebody isn't going to make the difference for you at the end. Run your hard race. Make your strategy. Put it together. Make your case. Do the work. Semi's just not done the work. He's just not. He hasn't had the team. He hasn't had the talent. He hasn't had the money. He hasn't had the strategy. Handing out more envelopes isn't a strategy on raising money. He just isn't doing the work right. In my most humble opinion, this race is over. We're just waiting for the finality of the vote. This race is over. If I was Semi's consultant, which I am not, but if I was, I would have told him to have pivoted to another race, and I would have told him to run that race, run it hard. In fact, I made this pitch to him, and he said no. He considered it, and I appreciate his genuine consideration of it. I told him that if he made the pivot, that we could probably raise anywhere from 250 to 300,000 to get it done. That wasn't to buy him. That was to just tell him that there would be support there for him, that we could raise that. You know, what I told him to do was to pivot into the lieutenant governor race. That way we could have a 1-2 punch. That way the establishment gets what they want. The conservatives get what they want. At the top of the ticket, you've got two candidates that can complement one another. If they can put the swords down long enough, they can campaign one with the other. They can run a 1-2 punch, top of the ticket. Denny Heck is tired. I felt like he was vulnerable. There was no trying to buy anyone. It's just saying it takes money to get there. And you know what? Money follows a plan. And so if we put that plan in place, that was the offer I made to him. That's what I told him that I would go pitch on his behalf to some of the money people. And he said no, that he felt like, you know, he and his wife both felt that it was his play to run for governor. And I respected that. And I said, okay, then that means in March, you got to have a big march and you got to start to put it together. And he said he understood. And we parted as friends. And that was it. That was the conversation. I won't go into any of the other specifics because it was an off the record conversation between he and I and one other person. But that's what was said. And I stand by that. And that's what was said. And if Semi thinks I'm lying, or you think I'm lying, you can ask Semi. Semi, I believe, is a truthful man. He will tell you that that's what was said. Okay. So that was the play that I wanted to run, because at the end of the day, I want to get Republicans elected, period. I want to get Republicans elected, because if we don't get Republicans elected and you end up with a supermajority in the Senate, John Braun has got a tall order. He's on the brink. He needs help. We don't need to be attacking John, and all of you know that I've had my differences with John, and John has certainly had his differences with me, but that's fine. We can put that aside. What I want is to get Republicans elected. And you know what? Dark Horse Political will help make sure that Republicans do not fall into a super minority. In the House, everyone knows JT Wilcox and I are probably not hunting buddies. But at the end of the day, well, he's not the minority leader now. Now it's Stokesbury. But I will help whomever is in charge to make sure that we can get out of or avoid a super minority situation. And you say, well, Chris, you're a sellout. Well, no, I just know the political process. See, you're forgetting the next step. The next step is, let's say you get an establishment Republican that you don't like. Say you're a big bird person, right? Or a big cult person. And you're like, oh, F these, establishment people. Well, see, you're forgetting about constituency. You're forgetting about the power of the constituency and holding the elected people accountable to vote in conservative ways. You can be a loud voice. You can put outside pressure on them to know exactly how you would like them to vote. And if you don't like how they voted on something, let them know about it. And if you really, really don't like how they voted on a lot of stuff, then you can find a candidate in the next election and you can run a challenging race against them. That's how the system works. But in the end of the day, we've got to stop fighting again amongst one another. We just do. We have to stop, because if we don't stop, Washington will be blue forever. So all this nonsense with Semi Bird and Reichert and all these different things, we need to stop pretending. We need to stop kidding ourselves. There is nothing good at the end of this tunnel if you guys endorse Bird and he gets the Republican nomination. No one should get the Republican nomination until the day after primary. That's what I have for you. I just wanted to come on here and explain my article. If you haven't read it, the link is going to be below. I hope you enjoyed this sit down, and we're going to be doing more of these sit downs where we break down certain races. But I want to leave you with this. I want to get Republicans elected. And if you want to get Republicans elected, then we can work together. If you just want to be right, then I don't know what to tell you. So you can be right or you can win. But being right or being right on the issues doesn't win elections. Because if being right on the issues won elections, then there would be no Democrats, because they're wrong on just about all the issues. What wins elections is strategy. What wins elections is focus. What wins elections is relationships. What wins elections is getting out and talking to voters. What wins elections is fundraising. What wins elections is getting on the phone, making the phone calls. Hey, Bob, Chris Gergen just wanted to reach out, let you know I'm running for, state house. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Oh, really? You think that's a great idea? Fantastic. Well, listen, it's going to be about $100,000 lift. Can you help me with $500 of that? Oh, you can? Thank you very much. Would you like me to send you a link, or when could I swing by and pick up a check? If you can't do what I just did, then you shouldn't be running for public office, because that is campaigning. Campaigning is knocking on doors. Campaigning is sending text messages. Campaigning is sending emails. Campaigning is doing events. It's not about being right. And as long as you want to be right, you're just a baby and you need to go sit in the corner while the rest of us actually run races that win. So this was a come to Jesus talk. So if you like it, then great. And if you don't like it, fantastic. Either way, I don't care, because it's the truth. And my job as a consultant is to tell my clients the truth. And my job in working in Washington State and helping conservatives to run races is to always be truthful with you. And this has been the truth. I'm willing to tell you the truth, even if it sucks. If it's a big shit sandwich, everybody has to take a bite. I'm going to let you know. There's nothing good down this trail. Do not make the mistake come Thursday of endorsing either one of these candidates. No endorsement, nothing. Let both these candidates fight it out all the way to the end, and whoever's the victor gets the spoils. I'm Chris Gergen. Thank you very, very much for sitting with me for about 30 minutes, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.